Hello and welcome. This is Edexcel iGCSE ICT. This is my paper 1 predictions for summer 2022, includes regional and non-regional papers. This is the advanced information that came out in February, and there's a link to this down in the description. The advanced information covers both papers, the regional and non-regional papers. If you're not sure what that means, regional means it's a paper that is done outside of the UK because of different time zones. So this advanced information covers both. Scroll down to pages 4 and 5 for the regional section. A warning before we start, this is for entertainment purposes only. I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot see into the future what exactly is going to be in the exam. I can only use the advanced information here, same as you can, same as your teacher can. I'm not an examiner. These are my predictions based on the advanced information. So with that out the way, let's get started. So we'll start off by looking at 1.1 and 1.3. The way this will work is we'll look at the non-regional first and then look at the regional, because there are slight differences. So in the non-regional section, you'll notice that 1.2 is actually missing, along with quite a lot of 1.1. So I'm talking about 1.1.2, 1.1.4 is actually missing from this. So I've got an exam question for you now, which we'll look at, a couple of questions, then we'll go and look at the regional section. So we'll look at 2019 question 1, 2021 question 4D embedded. I recommend that even if you are doing the regional paper, that you maybe look at the non-regional papers as well, because you never know, you could get similar questions. They're definitely worth a look. So let's jump in and have a look at these exam questions. So this is question 1 from 2019. Kiki buys a smartphone. The smartphone uses a sensor that detects movement of the device. One way in which the smartphone uses data from the sensors is to switch itself off if it's dropped. Give 2 other ways in which the smartphone could use data from the sensor. So this question could be slightly misleading, because you could be thinking about any kind of sensors that the smartphone has got, but we're specifically looking at a sensor that detects movement. I think that's called the accelerometer. So we're looking at that specific sensor. So could sense if the phone is turned over to answer the call. Some phones have that feature. You turn it over to answer the call, for example, or turn it over to, and the screen lights up. That's one way in which the sensor could be used. The phone sensor could also be used to play games. So we'll look at question B now. Smartphones can be connected using wired or wireless methods. Give 2 advantages, Kiki, of using wired methods to connect to the smartphone. And this is quite unusual. You don't often see this, people using wired methods to connect the smartphone. But advantages of wired methods, doesn't matter if it's a smartphone or a laptop or computer, are a more secure connection, a more faster connection. Disadvantages of wireless are that you need the cabling. You also restrict your movement, so you have to be where the cabling is. So there's advantages and disadvantages of that. The smartphone uses a SIM card. Which one of these is the type of connectivity that SIM card provides? Is of course 4G. 4D, this looks at embedded systems. Now, embedded systems are computers that have very limited processing power. They typically only do one sort of task. They contain probably more ROM than RAM, and they're doing a specific job. So why is an embedded system a poor choice? Because of its limited processing power and its limited applications. Make sure you understand what an embedded system is and its limitations. Now we'll look at the regional, and we notice that 1.2 is now in the regional, whereas it isn't in the non-regional. So 1.2.1, understand the features of digital devices, portability, performance, storage, user interface, connectivity, media support, energy consumption, expansion capability, and security features. And to help with that, we'll go and look at an exam question. Now, the first 2 parts of it are similar to the previous question that we looked at from the 2019 paper. Kiki buys a smartphone, it turns itself off when it's dropped. How does it do that? Well, it contains that motion sensor. So that's the answer to that. We won't spend too long on that. And also we've got advantages of wired versus wireless there, which we've already covered. C, the smartphone uses an SD card. Which one of these does an SD card provide? Is it location, connectivity, storage, or security? Is of course storage. SD card provides storage. D, the smartphone is an example of a converged device. What is meant by the term convergence? Make sure you understand this in your exam. Convergence is that when one device does basically the job of several, like several used to do. So if we think about the modern smartphone, it can do the job of a phone, a camera. It's got a camera in there, it's got a GPS system. So we no longer need to have sat-navs. Sat-navs have come and gone. It's also got a camera in there, it's got a fairly decent camera in there, it's got video camera in there as well. It's got an internet browser, it's almost a computer in your pocket. So that is an example of convergence where lots of uses on one device. E, the smartphone has a 4 GHz CPU, described by the speed of the processor is measured. So the processor is measured in hertz, cycles per second, instructions it can process per second. And in the case of the 4 GHz CPU, that's 4 billion instructions per second. So that's how the processor is measured. Next, we'll look at 1.4 to 1.7. You need to understand peripheral devices, input and output, and know the difference between input and output devices. If you're not sure, a really quick way to remember that is an input device needs an input. So think about a mouse. If I'm not moving the mouse, it stops working. If I'm not typing on my keyboard, it stops working. Whereas an output device does not need me to interact with it. So input devices, mouse, keyboard, output devices, printer, monitor, speakers, etc. Know the difference. Types of peripheral storage. So make sure you understand the hard drive, solid state versus magnetic, and the difference between the two. I've done plenty of videos on that. Go back and have a look at that. Now, different types of storage media, CD, DVD, Blu-ray, flash memory drives, magnetic tape. Understand the terms storage. So you've got bits, bytes, 8 bits in a byte. Then you've got kibibytes, 1024 bytes, mebibytes, 1024 kibibytes, etc. Difference between RAM and ROM. Okay, RAM is volatile storage used by the computer. ROM is non-volatile, used to store the BIOS information on the computer. It's hardwired, it isn't changed. Hence the term read only. You can read from it, you cannot change it. So that's the difference between RAM and ROM. Understand the function of the processing CPU. We've looked at that just before. Processor, make sure you understand that. That's processing instructions. An ICT system to meet specific needs. So accessibility, think about braille keyboards, screen monitor, screen magnifiers, dictation software, etc. So I've got a question for you now. That's a 2021 paper, question 1. So as always, you get the case study, and it's really important that you do read that very carefully and you refer back to that at the start. So Howard buys a tablet computer. Tablet means iPad or Android similar device, Kindle, something like that. That's a tablet computer. It's flat. It doesn't have a keyboard. It's got built-in keyboard on the screen. Give 2 types of wireless connectivity that the tablet could use. That is, of course, 3G or 5G if you have it. 3G, 4G, 5G you could put there, and LAN, local area network. B, give 2 types of peripheral storage media that the tablet could use. So that is extra storage. I would go for hard drive, and nowadays we're thinking cloud as well. You could also have optical, but think how many people use cloud drive, like your OneDrive or your Google Docs, Google Drive, etc. So we need to consider that as well. C, which one of these is required for the tablet computer to connect to the internet? Is it GPS, ISP, LAN, or NFC? It is, of course, ISP. Why isn't it LAN, local area network? Well, that isn't the internet. That might just be a local network. That might not be a connection to the internet. D, which one of these is found in all computers, control software, keyboard, operating system, or processor? It is, of course, D, because all of the others might not be in computer, but to be a computer, it has to have a processor. E, which one of these will be used as a desktop replacement computer, laptop, mainframe, media player, or server? There's only one possible answer there that could be used as a replacement of a desktop, and that is a laptop. F, describe how tablet computers allow people to work from home. So people can work from home through the use of internet connectivity and hosted applications and cloud storage. There's other things you could write there as well if you wanted to. G, a CPU has 16 megabytes of cache memory. Construct an expression to show how many bits are in 16 megabytes. So it's 16 multiplied by 1024. So that would get us to kilobytes by 1024 to get us to bytes. Remember, there's 8 bits in a byte, 1024 bytes in a kilobyte, 1024 kilobytes in a megabyte. So we need to do 1024. You can do 1024 squared there, and then multiply it by 8 because there's 8 bits in a byte, and that is a correct calculation. You do not need to do the calculation. It's just an expression, and that is your 3 marks. H, Howard sells his old hard drive to Steve. Complete the table by ranking the storage device in order of their read-write speed. So, which is the fastest and which is the slowest? The fastest is going to be the solid-state drive. That's always fastest. Followed by A, the hard disk drive, followed by B, the optical drive, which is the slowest. 2, describe 2 factors that affect read-write speed of the hard disk drive. So what affects the speed? Well, it's the latency of the read-write head, so that is the delay, and the RPM at which the disk spins, so how many revolutions per minute. And the more revolutions per minute, the faster it is. Which one of these is the type of software Howard should use to make copies of his applications? It is D, utility. So that completes section 1. Section 2, and again, we'll look at the non-regional, then the regional papers. So 2.1. So in there, you've got types of digital communications, 2.1.2 and 2.1.4. So you need to understand the difference between PANs, LANs, and WANs, and the difference between Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and when each is best used. So in a nutshell, PAN is Bluetooth, personal area network. So think of your Bluetooth speakers, your Bluetooth headphones. That's Bluetooth. That is personal area network. Local area network is a small network within a building, for example, and wide area network is the internet. Now, the differences between Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and when each is best used. So key differences: Wi-Fi we'd use when, for example, when we're at home to connect us to the internet, and Bluetooth would be used. Example, if your friend was sharing their data, creating a hotspot for you, you might use Bluetooth in that way. So let's go and have a look at the exam question 2020, question 2C. So here's a classic question that you could get on this. Sajini creates a personal area network PAN with a laptop and a smartphone. Describe one way that Sajini could use a PAN with these devices. So it's exactly what you might do. She could create a hotspot so that her laptop could use a smartphone 3G connection to give her laptop internet access. So 2.2 to 2.4, there are differences between this and the regional. If you're not sure which exam you're doing, then check with your centre. If you're outside the UK, if you're more than a few hours in terms of time zone away from GMT, then it's likely that you're probably doing the regional paper. And I thought for most of you watching this, you're probably going to be doing the regional paper. So make sure you understand that, because there are differences and you need to listen very carefully. So you've got 2.2 in there, 2.3 and 2.4. So looking at choice of digital communication, wired versus wireless, bandwidth and latency, broadband, cellular networks, media access control, the difference between IP and media access control. Key difference between IP and media access control: the IP address isn't fixed, the media access control address is fixed and doesn't change. So your IP address on your smartphone will change between school and home, for example. Know about network operating systems and how devices are identified on the network, device name, IP address, media access control address that we just talked about. Know the role for these connecting to and using the internet, web browser, ISP, search engine, filter software, understand the benefits of using local area network, shared peripherals. So compare that to the regional and see that 2.2 is a lot smaller. So it's actually slightly less for the regional, but you still need to understand about user experience, bandwidth and latency. Latency is the delay. IP address and media access control address that we just talked about. Understand the roles of web browser, ISP, search engine and filter software, and understand the benefits of using local area network, shared peripherals. So key benefits of using a LAN: share peripherals, share data. So I've got an exam question for you now, 2020 question 3 A to F, and then 2021 November question 4 A to E. Okay, question 3 then. Ashan works in an office with a network, uses a smartphone to make an online video call. Which one of these does Ashan need to do this? It is, of course, the WAN. It's a wide area network. So key there is in an office with a network, and that's a wide area network there. So scroll down. 2, describe how high latency affects his experience of video call. High latency will mean a big delay so that the voice will appear out of sync to the video. So make sure you read the question very, very carefully. High latency means a delay. It's not low latency. So there is a delay and the voice will appear out of sync to the video. So it will look very, very strange. So his words, his audio will not match the video. So number 3, how can latency be reduced? We need 3 ways for 3 marks. So 3 ways are that we could reduce distance, we could reduce interference, and we could have a wired connection. B, state the role of the ISP. It is, of course, to provide access to the internet. C, state the function of a gateway. It is to connect a LAN to a WAN. D, describe 2 benefits of using a client-server network. So I think the first benefit I'd write about is more control over the network so that it's managed and you can provide access, levels of access. It's more secure and managed. And the second benefit, I think centralized backup, so the files are backed up centrally and not by the individual client. E, which one of these is the method of identifying a computer on a network? Is it HTTP, WEP, FTP or IP? It is, of course, the IP, Internet Protocol address, the individual address of identifying a computer on the network. Every computer, and by computer I mean tablet, laptop, desktop, smartphone, has one. F, which one of these is a feature of media access control address? Is it A, B, C or D? The only correct answer out of all that is that it is B, and it is unique. So now look at 2021 November question 4. This one is about positive impact of the internet on how people work. So she doesn't have time to travel to work now, and we need another positive impact. There are lots of positives. She can collaborate with others using the internet. She can work at times that are suitable for her, set her own hours because the internet is 24/7, etc. B, when Kay logs onto a browser application at home, she sees that the bookmarks that she saved when she was in the office. How is this possible? It's possible because she's used the same account and profile which is stored in the cloud. So that's how it's possible for her to see the same bookmarks. C, which one of these is the role of an ISP? Is it A, B, C or D? The only possible answer there is B, it gives users access to the internet. D, complete the description of a secure password. A secure password should use a minimum of 8 characters and a mixture of letters and numbers, which I'm sure your password has. E, Kay is searching for some information online. Describe 2 ways that Kay can make effective use of a search engine to select information. So it's 4 marks, so it's going to be 2 marks per point made here. So she should use keywords to return relevant terms and items. She can compare results for accuracy, so compare at least 2 websites to check the validity of information. She can also filter by date to get the most relevant information. She can use symbols like plus, so she does an advanced search and she uses term plus another term to get exactly what she wants and filter it down exactly. So look at 2.5 now, securing data on a network including the internet. know and understand the use of logins and passwords, firewalls, WP, WPA, encryption, VPN, file access rights, transaction logs, and backups. And then the R has slightly more, so that has got 2.5.2. Select suitable methods for securing data in a particular context. So go and look at this exam question here, 2020 R paper 3A. Ashan works in an office with a network. He uses his smartphone to make an online video call. Which one of these protects his data? Is it WAN, WMA, WPA, or WAP? It is C, WPA. And that means Wi-Fi protected access, security standard for computing devices with wireless internet connections. And that completes section 2, so we'll move on to section 3 now. So now we move on to section 3, and this is 3.1 and 3.2, and there's some quite big differences between this and the regional paper there. You can see there's quite a lot more in the regional paper, so make sure you understand that. We'll go through this and some exam questions. I'll look at the regional paper here. So potential risks to data, personal information when information is transmitted and stored digitally. So risks in terms of phishing and farming. The difference between the two: phishing is fraudulent emails that get you to try and click a link and enter personal data. Farming is redirection. So you may think you're going to Facebook website. You're not. You go to some dummy website and they're going to capture your information. 3.1.2. So know about methods to secure data, firewalls, encryption, passwords, capture tests, anti-malware, antivirus, anti-adware, anti-spyware, access rights, file permissions, secure websites, not opening email attachments or following web links. So when you get an attachment from an email, don't open it up, particularly if it's a PDF, something like that, an executable file, don't open it up. Know about online payment systems, third-party systems, bank cards, NFC, near-field communication. So that is the pinless. So you just swipe your card, you just tap your card. That is that's what's meant by NFC. Impact of the internet on individuals. So obviously the internet is going to change the way people work, and it also create new jobs as well as get rid of some old jobs as well. Impact on working practices, flexible working. We've seen that over the pandemic, where more people working from home. We've now moved to a more kind of hybrid model where some people might spend part of the time at home, part of the time at work. This is also going to allow for, if people can work from home, not necessarily living in the cities, they can live where they want and choose to live where they want and work remotely. Airbnb, if you look at the news, Airbnb of trialing something like that. You don't need to live in their headquarters, near their headquarters now in San Francisco. You can go and work, go and live where you want, as long as you can come back every month and have a meeting in person. You can live where you want pretty much. So those are impacts on the way we work, and got a few questions for you now based on that. It's not possible to cover everything in this, but I've picked up some questions that will be most helpful. So 2020 R paper questions 4E to H, 2019 R paper question 2C, 2021 November 3D and E, and 2021 5E. Like I said to you just now earlier, even if you are doing the regional, you're not doing the non-regional, I still look at the non-regional papers as well, just to give you a different kind of angle on the questions. They're definitely worth a look at. Similarly, if you're doing the non-regional, look at the regional papers as well. They're definitely worth a look at. Definitely consider doing some of these. So we'll jump in and have a look at these questions now. So question 4, Kazuni studies online. A, state one type of user-generated reference site that Kazuni could use for her studies. Well, classic example is a wiki. I think I'll just go with the wiki there. B, state what is meant by the term plagiarism. It's copying someone else's work. So it doesn't mean copying someone else's work and referencing it. It means copying someone else's work and presenting it as your work. So literally deleting the name and putting your name on that. Examples don't like that for obvious reasons. C, describe how the key features of a virtual learning environment VLE could be used by students for completing a research project. There's loads you can write here. You probably use a VLE yourself. The user can download presentations from the teacher and study them in their own time. Assignments can be set and marked by the teacher using the VLE. Students can get instant feedback. Multimedia can be embedded by the with the VLE videos and podcasts, students can collaborate with others. So there's loads you could write there about the VLE, and you need to write quite a bit for 4 marks. Some teachers use OMR. OMR stands for Optical Mark Recognition. Which of these is an example of use of OMR? It is, of course, D, taking register. So move on to E, describe how a VPN works. A VPN is like a tunnel. So VPN is a very good idea, particularly if you use public networks. It uses tunneling. So it's like a tunnel connection that cannot be infiltrated to provide an encrypted connection to a private LAN using the internet. F we've kind of covered earlier, so I'm not going to spend too long on that. Features of a strong password, letters and numbers, and at least 8 characters. G, which one of these is the type of software used to encrypt files? Backup, utility, update, or network? It is B, utility. So H is an 8 marker. Describe how the availability of goods and services online could affect Sashini's lifestyle. In the interest of brevity and time, we will look at the mark scheme here. So you must discuss both benefits and drawbacks to get anywhere near 8 marks. And I'd also recommend writing a conclusion as well for 8 marks. So candidates should compare different points of view. Benefits there: more time with friends and family, reduced need to travel, use of notifications, planned time, facility to socialise, reduce loneliness, cashless systems, reduce individuals' robbery, more opportunities to engage with creative arts, otherwise distant sources. Drawbacks: more time spent online, doing things as an individual rather than with others, so it can be lonely. Inconvenience if no connectivity. Less movement, which has health implications. Immediacy of information makes people less patient. So it can lead to a sense of isolation as well. Now look at the mark scheme here. You must write a conclusion. So we definitely need that conclusion in there for 8 marks. So in conclusion, the internet has many positives, but it must be balanced with a sensible lifestyle choices. So exercise and not spending too much time in front of the screen, which can have negative health implications. So now we'll look at the 2019 R paper, question 2C. Zara sees this page. Okay, how is it a risk to Zara? Well, we'll just describe it now, and you can write things down. So the URL, user.paypal.com, that doesn't look right, does it? It should just be paypal.com, not user/paypal.com. What else are we looking for here? We've got a login there. So that could be a risk. As soon as you enter your email address and your password, that could be a risk. So URL and the login. Also looking back at the URL again, we see no HTTPS, it's only HTTP, so it's not secure. We see no shield, we see no indication that this is a secure site. It isn't a secure site, there's just a padlock there, but that doesn't really mean anything. It isn't secure at all. We're also looking for any spelling mistakes, any typos that could give that away. This is an example of a farming scam. It's a redirection, so it's not actually the PayPal site. And as soon as the user puts in their email address and details and password, that will be sent somewhere else. That will be recorded so that the person running this site can store that information and commit a crime, commit fraud. So that's what we're looking at there. That's why it's a risk to Zara. So she should check the URL, she should check it's secure, she should check what happens when you press login. Where is that going? Is this the actual PayPal website? It isn't. That's how it's a risk to Zara. This is 2021 November, questions 3D and E. Positive impacts of the internet on organizations. Well, it allows the organization, it depends on the organization, it allows them to reach a wider audience, so a worldwide audience as opposed to a local audience. They can reach out worldwide. It also allows their people that work from them to work flexibly. They can work from home. You can offer them that option if it's possible. So it allows more flexible working for their workers, allows their workers to work live wherever they want. They don't need to live near the office. Can also save on office space on rent, so we don't have to pay rent. We can just work from different offices. It doesn't have to be expensive downtown rents. So those are many of the positives of the internet on organizations. 2 challenges of an acceptable use policy with an online community. Well, the problem is that not all users will be able to agree on it. It'll be very hard to come to a consensus of all users on the acceptable use, and it requires monitoring at all times to ensure it's being upheld. So you can't just have it and then not monitor it. It's got to be monitored. It's got to be someone's job to monitor that, and that needs to happen all the time. So that's the challenges of an acceptable use policy. Acceptable use policy is an agreement that you sign when you log in or when you use a website or a system. You agree to abide by the rules of the system. Here's an interesting question about security to describe how WPA is a more secure protocol than WEP. WPA is Wi-Fi protected access, and WEP is wired equivalency privacy, 1997. So WEP is a lot older than WPA. So how is it more secure? So WPA generates a new key for each device on the network rather than using a shared key. So 3.4 and 3.5, impact of internet on organizations, impact of the internet on society. Fairly similar to the R, except 3.4.2 is missing for the non-regional. So you need to understand the positive impacts, communication, global markets, etc., and understand the implications of unequal access. So that is the digital divide. So the haves and have-nots. We look at the R, so we've got negative impacts in there. Security issues, risk of hacking, greater competition. So we'll look at an exam question here. Malware, so in 2020 R, paper question 5E, malware is a threat to Dushan's data. There's 2 other threats to Dushan's data. You've got hacking, phishing, farming, any one of those you can have in there that are threats to data. So if you're doing the R paper, you need to understand the threats to the data. 3.6 to 3.8. Again, some slight differences between the R paper. The R has 3.9, availability of information online and the use of online information, whereas the non-regional does not have that. So these are the things that you need to understand for your exam. So types of online community, social networking, gaming, social bookmarking, implications of the use of digital technologies, legal requirements, so make sure you understand copyright, Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988, data protection 1998, update GDPR 2018, protecting data, making sure it's secure, it's not out of date, it's used for purposes you say it's going to be used for, nothing else. Understand sustainability issues, so environmental issues, e-waste, what do we do with devices once they're obsolete? Shouldn't just throw them away, we should think about recycling them and using them for longer. And then for the R, you've got the 3.9 in there as well, availability of information online and the use of online information. Fitness for purpose, accuracy, age, relevance, reliability, bias. We talked about that. Check for age, double check sites against each other. Look at 2 sites. Are they both saying the same thing? If not, one is lying, etc. So we're going to look at a couple of exam questions now. 2021 November, questions 3A to C, and 2020 R, questions 4A to C. 3A, online transactions can be tracked. Which one of these is used for transaction tracking? Is, of course, cookies. B, one type of online service is education and training. Give one other type of online service. You could have banking in there and others online services. 2, list 2 features of a virtual learning environment, VLE. We've looked at the VLE earlier in the video. We've got notifications. You can chat with your teacher. Teacher can share resources, videos, etc. Can mark assignments. I'm not going to write those things down, so we've looked at that. C, which one of these describes people who are information poor? This means the digital divide. Is it A, B, C, or D? It is A. They have limited access to technology. They're information poor, that's a digital divide. And then D, two positive impacts of the internet on organisations. We've kind of looked at this before. Working from home, reaching a wider audience, more flexible ways of working, etc. We've covered that one before. And the 2020 R questions 4A to C, which we have done earlier in the video. So user-generated site, wiki, plagiarism there we talked about earlier, and then features of the VLE that we've talked about there. So make sure you understand that, because that could very well be in your exam, features of the VLE. So that completes topic 3. Now we can move on to topic 4. So now we'll look at topic 4, and topic 4 completes the advanced information. Why no topics 5 and 6? Because that is going to be the practical paper, the second paper that you do, and there's no advanced information about that. So for help with that, look at the practical paper, paper 2, exam papers that I've gone through, look at the software skills. Specifically, I'd focus on databases and spreadsheets. They're two things that you can guarantee will be in your paper 2 exam, spreadsheets and databases. So I've done many videos on that. Just search my channel, you'll find everything you need to know about Access and Excel. So we'll look at topic 4 then. There's key differences between the regional and non-regional. And we can see here the absence of 4.3 for the regional. So no online software for the regional. Hosted versus local. That doesn't mean to say you don't need to understand it. You don't need to make sure you get your head around that, because you do, because it's really important, because if it's not in this, you'll be talking about it some way anyway. So let's go through this. Types of service, so shopping sites, booking systems, education, VLEs, banking, entertainment, they're all services provided on the internet. Impact of services, so the way we collect data, transaction tracking, we've looked at questions about that, cookies, etc. So 4.3, which isn't in the regional, online software, so hosted versus local. Hosted is cloud-based, so we're thinking Office 365, for example, versus local, which would be using Microsoft Office, which is installed on our machines. So even if you're doing the regional, you can't just say, I don't need to revise that. I definitely would make sure I understand that, because it's going to be part of your exam. So let's go and look at some exam questions to wrap things up. We'll look at the 2021 question 3G, 2019 R questions F and G, and 2020 question 4H. So this is the 3G 2021. Eunice wants visitors to see her blog posts that are likely to be relevant to them. Describe how cookies can be used to achieve this. So cookies are used to analyze previous data and browsing habits to provide a more personalized experience for the user. They're used to track users' preferences and give them a better experience, provide things that are more likely to be interested in. So cookies aren't bad necessarily. They're used to track your preferences and give you a more personalized experience. In some countries, laws require websites to obtain informed consent from visitors before using cookies. Why are these laws required? They're there to protect privacy, so the user knows their web browsing preferences are being tracked. They can also opt out of it by saying not to allow cookies. Then usually if they click don't allow cookies, then probably the website will shut. But it's there to let them know that this is happening. And this is a 2019 R paper, question 2, F and G. This is mainly for the non-regional, but even if you are doing regional, I'd make sure I understand it. Explain one disadvantage of using hosted applications. You are storing your data on someone else's server and reliant on them backing things up. There's also security issues. You need a secure password. So that's a disadvantage of that. One disadvantage of using locally installed applications. I made a couple of points here. You need storage space, so must ensure you have the right sized hard drive to store this software. Also, that would be 2 marks there. You don't need this second point, but you don't have the latest version, because with cloud-based software, you've always got the latest version, so you don't when it's installed locally. And this is 2020 Question 4H, discuss the impact of transaction tracking on the information that individuals see online. So in the mark scheme here, you should compare different points of view, giving evidence for each one. Should include a conclusion. So things that we need to look at here are awareness of cookies, ability or inability to opt in or out. Search results show content related to previously visited sites. Creating confirmation bias of opinions. What that means is if you're constantly looking for something, you're not going to see anything else. So you get that kind of biased results there. So if you think about politics, for example, if you favour one party over another, you're going to get confirmation bias that that party is better than the other, or that particular viewpoint is better than another. Reduced exposure to alternate views because of that. You get tailored content, so it's more likely to be relevant, and shared devices means content may not be appropriate to all users. So the cookies, if you're sharing your device with someone else, the cookies might not be your cookies. They might be a mixture of yours and someone else's. So you're going to get very kind of skewed results there. So let's go and delve deeper into the mark scheme. So you need to compare a range of points of view, so positives and negatives of cookies there. So not just the negatives, there are positives to cookies. I've said that earlier in the video as well. You must write a conclusion. You must write a conclusion for 6 to 8 marks for level 3. You must have a conclusion in there. Okay, this is a discussed question. You must have a conclusion. Anything 8 marks, you've got to sum up your points. In conclusion, cookies can be both positive and negative. They do provide a more tailored experience for the user, but you just need to be aware that the results you're getting may be skewed because of your cookies. But overall, I think they provide more positives than they do negatives. So that completes the video. It's not an exhausted list of everything that you could get, but as kind of questions that I've picked out that you could possibly get in your exam, be a similar case study. Remember, topics 5 and 6 are going to be in the practical exam. So you need to make sure, if it was me, I'd make sure I really understand spreadsheets and databases. They're going to be the big one. So you can guarantee you'll get questions on spreadsheets and databases. Make sure you can understand them. Make sure you can do queries. For more stuff on that, check out my videos on that, on Access and Excel, everything you need to know. Have a look in my channel, you'll find that information. Let's say big thank you for watching. Good luck with your exams when they come up. Let me know in the comments how you get on, and thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.